10. Not 1. Not 5. 10 out of 10 on a scale where 10 is the lowest. That's the number Jaidyn Alexis put on the record when somebody asked her to rate the father of her kids. And if you missed the wince, don't worry, she said it twice with the little soundboard flourish, like a woman who's been holding that number in her chest for a while. Real quick before we walk into this one, if breakdowns like this are the reason you're still on the side of the app, tap the like, hit subscribe, flip the bell, so the next drop doesn't get lost in the shuffle. Then sit with us, because there's a piece of paper under this one that nobody's picking up yet. That paper is a $123,000 default judgment, a Rella gender reveal, a Carlisa live stream toasting champagne to a grandbaby that hasn't been born yet, and the small detail that the fresh Blueface is a horrible dad. Energy started clocking in at almost the exact same moment his phone lit up with a private video getting made public. We'll get to why that timing is the seam holding this whole story together. The players: Johnathan Porter, the rapper you know as Blueface; Jaidyn Alexis, longtime partner, mother of Javon and Journey, currently ranking his fatherhood at 10 of 10, where 10 is the lowest. Carlisa Saffold Harvey, Blueface mother, running her own live stream commentary channel on the whole family. Krazian Rock, mother of Krazian Jr., and now, enter Rella, an alleged third-tier baby mama, who this week confirmed she's expecting a girl and floated the name Rella Carlisa Porter. According to Carlisa on stream, Rella's own mother said yes, the name is real. The where is Los Angeles, mostly. The when is this week. The Rella confirmation landed on a stream Carlisa was recording from her friend's Mexican breakfast spot, biscuits and gravy on the way. Little Carissa, rolling off her tongue like a toast. The which is a public live stream, an on-stream interview clip of Jaidyn, and a set of paternity-adjacent statements from a mother who won't stop reminding everyone she's the grandmother of record. One more piece of the player's bench before we open the folder. The plaintiff on the paper, Jacqueline Martinez, publicly known as Soulja Boy's former partner and the mother of one of his children, is the party whose defamation suit against Blueface produced the $123,245 judgment, now stripping his royalty accounts. That name matters. This is not an anonymous claimant on a random docket. This is a woman with her own public profile, her own media footprint, and her own lawyer team that already knew how to move a defamation claim through to default when the defendant ghosted. According to Hip Hop Wired, the award broke down to a $100,000 pain and suffering line item, with punitive damages declined by the judge, a detail that quietly tells you what the court thought of the underlying conduct. And, per TMZ, the redirection is not a lump sum garnishment. It is an ongoing intercept. The stream keeps flowing until the number is satisfied. Every play, every sync, every catalog sent wherever Thoshiana gets counted, that count is now Martinez's revenue line, not his. File it under Los Angeles County. File it under the fall calendar. File it under the reason every other woman in this story is suddenly moving fast. Now the paper. Start with the sit-down. Jaidyn Alexis asked on camera how good of a father Blueface is on a 1 to 10 scale where 10 is the lowest. Her answer, straight quote, 10's the lowest. Absolutely. Positively. Then the reasoning, also on tape, buying Robux and doing cameos doesn't make you a great dad. Teaching mother life lessons, priorities, morals, hygiene, how to pee in the toilet, you don't do that. She goes further. She names it. You don't get to come around no more. That is not a soft quote. That is a mother pulling the visitation privilege in public. Read that line back. You don't get to come around no more. That's not a co-parenting complaint. That's a status change. That's the paperwork under the paperwork. Second exhibit. XXL on the record. Blueface has warned Krazian Rock publicly he'll file for custody of their son if she doesn't parent correctly, and separately, in his own words, admitted he has no custody of his son with Krazian because of a legal situation tied to his own case. So, the man publicly threatening custody moves on one baby mama is the same man who, per his own admission, doesn't currently hold custody of another one. That's not us reading tea leaves. That's the file. Third exhibit, and this one's the pressure valve nobody's putting on the table. A court reportedly entered a default defamation judgment against Blueface, ordering roughly $123,000 payable to Jacqueline Martinez, and the mechanism the judge used was rerouting his ASCAP and BMI royalty streams. Not future royalties, existing ones. The music money doesn't hit his account first, it hits hers. Now hold that number in your head, $123,000, royalty stream redirected. While Jaidyn is on tape saying his card declined at the store. Hold it while Carlissa's on stream saying, we ain't hit the billion yet. Hold it while Rella is out here saying the baby's going to be named Rella Carlissa Porter. Same last name, same music royalties linked last name, same royalty stream the court just handed to somebody else. We'll come back to that. Fourth exhibit. Carlissa Saffold Harvey, live on stream, dead serious voice, asked directly if she'd get a DNA test on the Rella situation. Quote, "It is not my responsibility to get no DNA test. My responsibility is to love on the grandchildren that they bring to me, then softer on the specific baby. I just hope and pray that it is his. Nobody wants to be tricked." Okay, wait. Let me read that back to make sure I got it right. She's saying she won't test the baby and that she hopes she isn't being tricked. In the same breath. That's not a mixed signal. That's a woman keeping her options wide open on national livestream. File that. Fifth exhibit. Chrisian Rock on tape offering an apology. "I'm sorry, Carlissa. I'm sorry, Jaidyn. I apologize to that whole side of the people." Carlissa's public response. Rock's not putting hands on Jaidyn, and the reconciliation isn't in her heart right now. Get her mama or somebody else to handle it. That's a swerve. That's Carlissa telling the mother of her other grandson to send the apology through channels. Sixth exhibit. And this one landed with less noise than it should have. All Hip Hop, publishing its own copy of the ruling summary, states the judgment package totaled $123,245, including $100,000 for pain and suffering, and notes Blueface reportedly failed to participate in the case. Read that second half slow. He didn't lose the defamation case on the merits of the argument. He lost it on absence. That's a default. That's a courtroom that never got his side because his side never showed. That is not a witch hunt narrative. That is a calendar he didn't clear. One-word reaction. Costly. Seventh exhibit. Blueface himself, in his own on-camera interview, explaining why he holds no custody of his son with Chrisian. Quote, per the YouTube segment, "The child does not carry his last name, and because Chrisian listed a different surname on the birth certificate, he has the sentence trails into the legal wall he ran into." Read that back too. A surname on a birth certificate is not a symbolic choice. It is the load-bearing document custody, support, and inheritance all hang from. Blueface knows this. He said this, out loud, on camera, in his own words. And now watch what Rella is doing with the surname question a few paragraphs from now. Flat delivery. Just file it. Eighth exhibit. TMZ on the record and dated this cycle, confirming the intercept is active. Rapper Blueface music royalties are now going to Soulja Boy's baby mama Jacqueline Martinez to pay off a massive debt he owes her. TMZ present tense. Not will be. Not may be. Are. Right now, as you're watching this, every royalty statement generated for a Blueface song this month has a different name on the payout field than it did last year. That is the hard receipt this entire story is orbiting. Ninth exhibit. Jaidyn Alexis, in her own words, on the live where she framed the parenting critique. She says, plainly, that the energy came about once Blueface leaked in videos of her giving Bravo sloppy top. That is not somebody else's timeline. That is her own. She placed the trigger. She named the sequence. She didn't hedge it. Silence. Now, let's line the dates up, because this is where it stops being a family drama and starts being a business. Blueface came home from prison this fall. The reporting confirms it. Released, first Instagram post, reunited on camera whole moment. That's checkpoint one. Same window. The private video involving Jaidyn and a former associate hits the timeline. He posts it. He laughs about it on stream. She calls it revenge. Backlash is instant, and this is where the sequence starts talking. Jaidyn's on tape now, in the sit-down on record, calling him a 10 out of 10 lowest scale father. And she says the quiet part loud. Now, mind you, this energy came about once Blueface leaked in videos of her giving Bravo's sloppy top. That's her own timeline. That's her own admission. The parenting critique is downstream of the video drop. That is not us assigning motive. That's her own words placing her own timeline. Rella confirms the pregnancy is a girl. And while she's confirming it, she casually drops the name, Rella Carlisa Porter. Carlisa herself, on stream, asks the audience to investigate whether it's real. Then confirms it. Then toasts to it. You see how it just rolls off the tongue? Now, overlay the calendar. Prison release. Video leak. Baby Mama 1 pulls the 10 lowest card publicly. Alleged Baby Mama 3 names her unborn daughter after his mother, pulling the grandma into the alliance before the child is even born. And through all of it, the royalty stream, his money spigot, is court-ordered flowing to somebody else's account entirely. The pattern reads like a game of musical chairs where the chairs are last names, alliances, and paternity claims. And the music stopping is the royalty seizure. There's one more overlay. Carlisa on stream. Casually, he said he doesn't care about Javon and Journey anymore. He did not say that. He would never say that. That's a mother pre-defending a quote she knows is out there. A quote so damaging she's rebutting it before we've been shown it. That is a tier 3 pattern read, and I'll flag it as 1. But when a mother defends a sentence her son would never say, it usually means the sentence exists somewhere. Somebody in the comments has probably already clocked which stream she was reacting to. If you saw the original, drop the timestamp, because every version we tried to pull came up scrubbed. Now, overlay checkpoint 0, the one nobody puts in the timeline. Before the release, before the leak, before the sit-down, Blueface reportedly failed to answer or appear in the Martinez defamation matter per all hip-hop. That non-response is the actual event 0. Everything downstream, the seizure order, the intercepted royalties, the visible cash pressure Jaidyn later mocks with the decline card line, traces back to that empty chair in a courtroom nobody in the fandom was watching. You want to know when the season really started? Not the prison door. That door. The one he didn't walk through. Now, overlay the pre-release interview. Per Instagram/YoungDame, before his release, Blueface was estimating a March or April 2025 exit date. He ended up serving until November 2nd, 2025, per Instagram verified, reporting reshared broadly across the culture blogs. That is a 7-month overrun on his own projected math. 7 months where the outside world kept moving. Martinez's case kept ripening, Rella's pregnancy clock was already ticking, and Carlos's livestream operation was consolidating narrative control. He walked out into a family that had been running without him for longer than he expected, which brings us to the part that reads like a punch. I already know what the Blueface Defender camp is about to type in the comments about him not being given a fair reintegration, so save the keys for the receipts. He knew the calendar. He picked the calendar. The calendar didn't ambush him. One more mechanic, the deletion sequence. The scrubbed Carlisa clip is not an isolated wipe. Multiple screen cap accounts have flagged that stream segments touching on the doesn't care about Javon and Journey quote and on the specific dollar amounts Carlisa referenced during the Toast and Biscuit stream keep vanishing from her archives within hours of going up. Wayback captures are thin. Archive.today mirrors are sparse. That is not a moderation issue. That is a curator making choices. The choices tell you what she thinks is load-bearing. She keeps the sweet moments. She keeps the toasts. She deletes the sentences that read like admissions when transcribed cold. Zoom the lens. One line. Carlisa on stream on the possibility of a third grandbaby. She starts running through zodiac signs like she's building a corporation. A Leo to get out there and get that money. A Virgo to count that money. And a Capricorn to stay up all night, making sure they stay up all night getting and counting. Read that again. She's not describing children. She's describing an org chart. Sales, finance, ops. And she's putting the unborn baby in the ops chair before Rella has cleared the second trimester. Zoom tighter. The word Porter. Rella Carlisa Porter. That is the surname on the ASCAP and BMI royalty statements. That is the surname on the LLCs. That is the surname on the judgment currently being paid out to Jacqueline Martinez. When you name a baby with that surname, you are not just picking a name. You are naming a party of interest. One more magnifier. The Robux comment. It reads like a mom being petty moment. It isn't. Robux is a digital currency. It has no cash value going back out. It has no chain of custody. It doesn't hit a bank statement. If you buy your kid $1,000 in Robux, there's no trail into a college fund, into a trust, into a savings account. Jaidyn didn't complain that he wasn't spending money. She complained that he was spending money in the one form that can't be traced or recovered. From a woman whose partner just had his physical royalty checks intercepted by a court order. Robux is not a random example. Robux is the tell. Pull up the complex piece again and read the URL slug carefully. Blueface Royalties seized Soulja Boy baby mama defamation judgment. That is not a soft slug. Editors pick slugs strategically because slugs are permanent SEO real estate. Complex chose seized, not redirected, not assigned, not garnished, seized. That is a verb with a specific temperature, and it means the outlet's own editorial read is that this is a taking, not a routine collection. Compare that to the hip-hop wired slug, redirected. Softer verb, softer read, same underlying facts. Two outlets, same paper, opposite verbs. Whichever one you consumed first is the read you're carrying in your head right now, and neither of them told you that. Rella, in her own gender reveal clip, mentioned an alternate name early on, Rella Blue Porter, per Instagram. Blue, as in the father's alias. Not the mother's name. Not the grandmother's name. His. That was the first draft. The second draft became Rella Carlisa Porter. Track the verb change in the naming ceremony. The middle name shifted from a paternal signal to a maternal line through the grandmother signal in the same news cycle. That's not a spelling change. That's a strategy pivot. Somebody advised her. And this one had to be zoomed in on 3 separate rewatches before I trusted what I was hearing. Carlisa uses the phrase, grandbabies they bring to me across multiple streams. Not the grandbabies my son has. Not my grandkids. The grandbabies the mothers, plural, third person, bring to her. That preposition matters. She is positioning herself as the receiving party. The dock, not the ship, which is exactly the linguistic posture a person adopts when they intend to accept every deposit that lands and sort out the paperwork later. Rewatch her tone when she uses that construction. It's the same tone every time. That's the tell. A repeated phrasing across 3 different streams is not a slip. That's a script. Blueface's own on-camera acknowledgement that his son with Krazian doesn't carry his last name is not just a paternity emotion. It is a publishing split protection layer. In music catalog inheritance, surname carriage often correlates with named beneficiary status when the artist hasn't drafted a full estate plan. If his son isn't a Porter on paper, that son's claim on the catalog is meaningfully harder to litigate, which means every time Rella confirms Rella Carlisa Porter, she is doing the opposite of the Krazian move. She's stacking the surname on the paperwork before the child is even born. That is not a coincidence. Sorry, that is not accidental. Somebody in that camp knows exactly how catalog beneficiary claims work. Back to the hip-hop wired breakdown of the Martinez judgment. The specific note that the judge declined to award punitive damages is the sleeper line. Punitives are the court's way of saying we want to punish, not just repair. When a judge declines punitives on a defamation default, it usually means the record was thin on malice, but the record was thick enough on compensatory harm to justify $100,000 for pain and suffering. That's a precise thermometer reading. The court didn't think Blueface set out to destroy her. It thought he hurt her badly enough that $100,000 of the intercepted royalty stream had to sit inside her wound. That distinction is going to matter in every future baby mama filing that references this judgment as precedent, because the compensatory versus punitive split changes what the next plaintiff has to prove. 3 camps are reporting this story. Watch how each one frames the same set of facts. The tabloid outlets. TMZ, hot new hip-hop. They're covering it as celebrity chaos. Deadbeat dad angle. Baby mama drama angle. Rella naming the baby angle as a cute human interest curl. Their verbs are soft, shares, reveals, sparks. The framing keeps the story light because the story is engagement fuel. The deeper you go, the fewer clicks convert. The Krasian rock defenders in the comments. Their framing. Jaidyn was silent for years, cashing checks and vibes, and only turned into a parenting critic when a private video went public. They're not wrong on the timeline. They are choosing to make the timeline the whole story. Team Carlisa. And this one's the loudest right now because Carlisa is running her own live coverage of her own family in real time. Her framing. Everybody's a little slow. She's the only adult in the room, and the babies, including the one Rella is carrying, are hers to bless regardless of DNA. She's Grand Central Station for the narrative. Every subplot has to run through her mic. Somebody in the comments is going to say, "You're being unfair." Carlisa's just a grandma being a grandma. Rella naming the baby after her is a sweet moment, not a strategic play. Let me Steelman that for a second. Rella did say she was joking initially. Carlisa did seem genuinely surprised on stream. And plenty of grandbabies get named after grandmas without a spreadsheet attached. Fair. But Steelman aside, this is the same Carlisa who, on that same stream, laid out the Leo Virgo Capricorn corporate structure and asked what sign Rella is. That is not a sweet grandma reaction. That is a founder doing due diligence. The paper doesn't lie, and this is the framing nobody is naming out loud, so let me name it. The legal adjacent trades. Urban Mag Online covered the seizure with a headline that reads like a small market bar association bulletin. Blueface, music royalties seized to fulfill $123,000 defamation judgment. Clinical verbs, no adjectives, no clickbait modifiers. That framing tells you the writer wanted the courtroom to be the story, not the family, not the drama, the courtroom. And that framing is the one the mainstream outlets buried the deepest, because a courtroom read implicates the business of being Blueface, not just the personality of being Blueface, and the business read invites uncomfortable questions about catalog control, about whether the intercept is temporary or precedent-setting, about whether other creditors are watching this ruling and taking notes. This one's going to divide the timeline. Some of you are going to argue the tabloids protect celebrities by keeping the drama loud, and some of you are going to argue they do it accidentally by chasing the loudest thread. Both reads have receipts. Pick one and defend it downstairs. Camp 5, the Soulja Boy fandom. Watch the verbs their coverage uses. The TMZ framing repeatedly ties the story back to Soulja Boy through Martinez's identity as his former partner. Soulja Boy's baby mama leads the headline construction. That's a subtle move. The story is not actually about Soulja Boy. Soulja Boy is not a party to the defamation case. But by anchoring Martinez's identity to his name, the framing quietly borrows his fandom's engagement to move a story that would otherwise be pure Blueface scam business. Which means every Soulja Boy click on this story is a click that never would have converted if Martinez had been introduced by her own name first. That is not accidental headline construction. That is aggregation math. Now, let me open a different Steelman than the one the original take addressed. This one lands through the actual headline, not through an imagined commenter. The Times of India coverage of the Blueface Bravo Jaidyn arc used the word emotional in the headline. That framing implies the leak was reactive, unplanned, an outburst, a man losing his composure in real time, not executing a strategy. If you take that framing seriously, the revenge leak reading collapses. It becomes a breakdown. And a breakdown reading would change how the downstream Jaidyn pivot reads too. Less positioning, more genuine hurt. Fair Steelman. Real headline. Real outlet. Full respect for one beat. but then dismantle. An emotional breakdown read does not survive contact with the "he laughed about it on stream" beat we already established, and it does not explain why the video content was reportedly primed and ready to post the instant the argument broke. Breakdowns don't come with preloaded media assets. Strategies do. The paper, again, doesn't lie. The gears just shifted. Now the take. The public read on this story is that Blueface is a bad father, Jaidyn finally found her voice, Carlisa is the loud grandma, and Rella is either genuinely charmed or angling for a piece of the estate. Here's a different read. Track with me. None of it, makes sense as a family drama. All of it makes sense as a fight over a royalty stream that's already been redirected once and could be redirected again. The $123,000 default judgment isn't a footnote. It's the plot. When a court orders your ASCAP and BMI money rerouted to a defamation plaintiff, every other party with a paternity claim on the man's name has just been informed, publicly on the record, that his income can be intercepted. That is a signal fire. And it's the kind of fire that changes what a baby's last name is worth. So look again at Jaidyn's pivot. She's been publicly loyal for years. She let a lot pass. She kept her voice down through cheating, through the Krasian chapter, through the streaming shenanigans. And in the same window, a private video of her drops. In the same window, his money spigot gets clamped. In the same window, a fourth alleged mother of a child steps forward. She goes on camera and reclassifies him from "my baby daddy" to "you don't get to come around no more." That's not an emotional decision. That's a positioning decision. She is repositioning herself as the primary parent on record with a public paper trail of parenting criticism at exactly the moment when primary parent status starts to matter for who gets what from a compromised income stream. Now, Rella. The name choice, Rella Carlisa Porter, isn't a love letter. It's a handshake. She is publicly aligning her unborn daughter with the mother of the man whose royalties are already spoken for. She's not asking Blueface for anything. She's asking Carlisa. Because Carlisa is the one on stream every night controlling the family narrative, and Carlisa is the one who, in her own words, will love the grandbabies regardless, no DNA test required. Rella just bought a seat at the table by naming a baby, and she did it before the child was born, which means the seat is guaranteed regardless of what a paternity test would eventually say. And Carlisa, bless her, is running the operation like a woman who knows exactly what's happening and has decided the smart move is to accept every grandchild through the front door because the alternative is watching the family estate get carved up by strangers in court. Refusing a DNA test isn't sweetness. It's strategy. If you never test, you never disprove. If you never disprove, no one gets excluded from the family alliance. And an alliance is what she's building with the Zodiac org chart, the champagne toasts, the Little Carissa catechism. Deep in the defense of the read. The Porter surname isn't decorative. The YouTube segment where Blueface himself explains that the Krasian side child birth certificate surname is not Porter is the exact structural inverse of what Rella is doing. One camp has the surname on the paper, and thus a stronger paper trail hook into the catalog conversation. The other camp doesn't. And Carlisa knows this. Her Krasian Jr. commentary reads different than her Rella commentary for a reason. The Rella baby is a name in alignment. The Krasian Jr. situation is a name in conflict. She is not treating those two grandchildren the same because they are not the same on paper. Whatever she says on stream about equal love, the operational reality, which stream time she gives, which milestones she celebrates, which apologies she accepts, moves through the surname filter. That is the mainstream outlet's cleanest miss. They are covering grandma drama. They should be covering surname strategy. Add the outlet name to the mainstream staging. Complex is the outlet that led with Seized. That was the closest a legacy publication got to the plot, the piece where the verb choice quietly acknowledged what the ruling actually is. But even Complex framed the follow-up coverage around the celebrity dyad, Blueface versus Soulja Boy adjacent plaintiff, instead of a mechanical read. A rapper's catalog income can be intercepted by a defamation default, and every future creditor is a defamation suit away from doing the same. That is the sentence the trades won't publish. The publishing databases know it. The catalog managers know it. The insurance underwriters know it. But the trade press won't print it plain, because printing it plain means telling the audience the business of celebrity is fragile in a way the audience isn't allowed to see. Now the added jabs. The mainstream read wants you to believe this is chaos. It isn't. It's choreography. Chaos doesn't rhyme. This rhymes. The mainstream read wants you to believe Rella is naive. Naive women don't publish a middle name change from paternal alias to maternal grandma between 2 news cycles. Strategists do that. The mainstream read, and this one lands drier than the others, wants you to believe the royalty seizure is a Blueface-specific problem. It isn't. It's a precedent-specific problem. Every artist with a defamation suit on the horizon just watched the same ruling. And this last one almost sits with sympathy. Blueface didn't participate in the case that took his royalties. That is a person who did not know how bad the calendar was going to be. That is not a villain read. That is a not showing up read. Somewhere in the pattern, there is a human who stopped opening the mail. That doesn't excuse anything. It just changes the temperature of the read from arrogance to absence. Somebody's going to say, I'm reading too much into a live stream. Fine. Let me hedge. Honestly, the money read is the strongest interpretation of the pattern, but it's a tier 3 read. There is no filing that says Rella did this for the estate. There is no email chain. There is only the sequence, the surname, and the timing. If a cleaner explanation shows up, we'll say, so on the next one. But from where we're sitting today, this is the honest read. 3 mothers, 1 grandmother, 1 compromised royalty stream, and a whole lot of naming ceremony happening in front of a camera. Jaidyn's 10 out of 10 lowest is not the story. It's the receipt for the story. Watch what happens once the Rella pregnancy hits the 3rd trimester. The name is going to firm up in a filing, a birth certificate, a hospital form, something with a signature on it. And the second that surname Porter lands on a state document, every other party in this triangle has a new legal fact to work with. Don't be surprised if there's a paternity petition filed within 60 days of the birth, not by Blueface, but against him, initiated by Rella's side to establish support obligations early. Watch how that first paternity motion, once filed, invites a second one from the Krasian side, because once one baby mama camp signals it is willing to litigate in the shadow of the Martinez precedent, the other camps have to decide whether to lock in their positions or lose leverage. Don't be shocked when a third motion, the Jaidyn custody adjustment, lands not as a hostile filing, but as a stipulated one, precisely because Jaidyn has spent this cycle building the you don't get to come around no more record in public. The next 6-month window will feature at least 1 filed exhibit citing her on-camera statements as evidence of good faith parental positioning predating the litigation. That is the exact reason the sit-down was recorded in the first place. Meanwhile, Jaidyn is positioned to do exactly what her on-camera statement set up. Once the sit-down clip is fully in circulation, the you don't get to come around no more quote becomes an exhibit, a documented, self-authored parental restriction. That's not an accident. That is a person creating the record before it's needed. The next phase of that arc looks like a formal custody adjustment or a modified visitation agreement, and it's going to reference the public statements as evidence of her position dating back to this exact window. By the time the first birth certificate hits the county recorder, expect a secondary consequence the mainstream coverage will completely miss: a publishing catalog reassessment. Once Warner Chappell, ASCAP, and BMI each have multiple competing claim-adjacent parties in the file, the standard internal move is to shift Blueface catalog from a straight payout structure to a suspense account structure, where earnings sit in escrow until claim priorities resolve. That is not speculation about him personally. That is what publishing administrators do procedurally when the paper gets crowded. The Carlissa Defender camp is about to type that I don't have receipts on this, and I want to name that hedge cleanly. This is a tier 3 pattern read of standard publishing administration practice, not a specific filed action. But it lines up with how the industry moves when a catalog gets legally interesting. And then the residue, 5 years out, This isn't remembered as the Robux beef or the club door embarrassment or even the naming ceremony. This is remembered as the moment the Blueface catalog became a shared asset legally, structurally, permanently. Because once a royalty stream has been redirected once by court order, it becomes precedent for the next claim. The catalog isn't his anymore. It's a pot the courts already reached into. Every future baby mama filing works from that baseline. Once the dust settles on this cycle, 3 or 4 households are going to have partial claims on future earnings from songs he already recorded, and the family Carlisa is trying to alliance build tonight is going to be less about love and more about a share structure. Watch how that 5-year residue reaches artists nobody thinks is connected to this case. By the time the next mid-tier rapper faces a defamation default, plaintiff's counsel will cite Martinez versus Porter as the template, not because it made new law, but because it demonstrated the mechanical viability of catalog intercept as a collection strategy. Once you see the next filing use in the manner ordered in language, you're looking at the aftershock. Don't be shocked when a music industry trade, Billboard or Variety, runs a royalty seizure precedent piece within 18 months of the next high-profile intercept and buries the Blueface case in paragraph 6 as the undercovered ruling that quietly moved the field. That is the piece the mainstream should be running right now. Once the second intercept hits, expect it retroactively, which is exactly why she's toasting champagne to little Carissa on stream before the birth certificate is signed. She sees the future. She's just narrating it in real time and hoping we call it grandma energy. The comments section is going to split 3 ways on this one. Somebody's going to say Jaidyn is a hero. Somebody's going to say she cashed the checks for 6 years and lost the right. Somebody's going to say Carlisa is doing what any grandma would do. Pick a lane and put it in the comments, and if you worked adjacent to the Blueface camp between 2022 and now, you already know which read is closest to the paper, so drop what you can drop without burning yourself. We hedged one thing earlier, the specific stream where Carlisa pre-denied the doesn't care about Javon and Journey quote. If you clocked the original before it got scrubbed, timestamp it. That's the loop we opened at the top, and that's the one piece of paper we couldn't fully verify tonight. If it surfaces, we're back on this one with a part 2. Until then, the receipts are on the table, the timeline is what it is, and the last name on that birth certificate is going to tell us more about this family than any interview ever will. Like the video if the paper hit. Subscribe if this is the kind of read that fits your feed. Flip the bell so the next case doesn't get buried. Wrap and receipt out. Court's adjourned. Next file's already loading.